Dreamer's Den, a podcast about daring to dream, with host Brad Robbins.
Hello, everybody. I'm Brad Robbins, and welcome to the Dreamer's Den, a podcast dedicated to exploring and examining the lives of those who dare to dream. We're podcasting today from Dreamer's Den HQ, and I'm joined by my good friend, improv, sketch, and now stand-up comedian, Shaun Johnson of the Johnson Files. Shaun, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, sir. This is great.
Man,
Love being here.
Yeah, this is a different setting for both of us.
It is.
Mics are still here.
That's right.
But no stage. Well, stage of sorts, I should say.
It's cool.
So, man, so many things I want to talk about, so many directions I want to take this, but I want to start with our mutual connection. What I failed to say when I introduced you is you are the proud owner of GenQuad.
I was wondering, why you didn't acknowledge that.
I was worried we were going to have to redo that. So obviously that's probably, I would assume, top of the resume, highlight of your career, frankly.
It was a big jump to add that to the resume. But yeah, it's fun to think about. How long ago was that?
Was it 21?
2021?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because so for those that don't understand the context, in coming out of COVID, GENTRI in 2020 had the opportunity to reprise roles in a production of Les Miserables, the show that brought us together back in 2014. And it was not long after we closed that run, which was, spanned the course of, 3-4 months, that we got a message from you, who we were all familiar with at that point, loved watching your stuff on Instagram and social media, but you had this idea.
Yeah.
Talk us through not just the idea, but all of the stuff that led to that idea.
Well, what led to it, like many of my ideas, was my wife placing a little nugget in my brain or a little seed and then letting it grow. So she was like, they're here in Utah. They're so good. I just love them. You've got to make a video with them. And I'm like, what am I going to make with them? They're up there doing their big songs. Like, it has nothing to do with me. And then she really wanted you guys to open for our show. And I was like, well, they can't open just as them. And so that led to the idea that what if we did a video where I purchased GENTRI so that I could be in it. And I changed the name to GenQuad, and then it just spiraled from there. And we still had not met you guys. I had no clue if you'd even be up for it or if you could even act. I knew you could act in Les Mis, but this was a very different kind of acting. And so
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was the thing I was gonna mention specifically was once we got done filming, and it seemed like we really found a groove. Honestly, the only downside to that day was it was just so hard to keep a straight face. And in fact, the other day, one of my personal followers on my Instagram sent me a screenshot after I had reposted the GenQuad first time video.
Yeah.
And it was that moment where, we're in rehearsal, we're singing Usher's Yeah, which if you haven't seen the video, that's actually what we were singing. And out of nowhere, you jump in between me and Casey with the Lil Jon moment.
Okay.
There's a little smirk on my face. Like, I can't even tell you how many times we had to shoot that. So, but yeah, we had a fun like moment of like, well, that was great. Good thing you can act, because that would have been a complete disaster.
I wrote the whole script with each of your lines specific to you. And then I turned to Nicole, my wife, and said, I hope they can do these lines, because some of them are like funny lines. And if they can't do it, it's just going to fall flat. But you guys blew it out of the park. And obviously we did a second one, and, everybody enjoys it, except for the people that think it's real. Those people are upset about it to this day. But
without fail, every time I repost one of those, there's at least one or two comments like, wait, this actually happened.
I know. My favorite was somebody who said, why would you guys sell? I liked the group the way it was. This new guy is no good. Something along those lines. I'm like, wow, we've just upset some people.
Which honestly, I think the first time I got a message like, wait, did this actually happen? I just replied, yes.
Just
left it with that.
Yep, dive into it.
Well, and speaking of the second one, I remember you sent over the script, and I was so excited that we were doing a follow-up, because I just had so much fun doing it the first time. But there was a little section in there for a cameo with David Archuleta.
Yeah.
Who we had met and kind of like loosely worked with through some work on some other stuff that we had done. But I mean, where did that idea come from? And tell us the story of actually landing him and getting him to agree to do that.
I mean, I wrote him in there saying, I mean, I think I told you guys even when we filmed the video, I'm like, we're going to film a version where David Archuleta is in this and then a version where he's not, because I have yet to contact him. I have no clue if he's going to do this, but he did. And we tossed around like, Donny Osmond or Derek Huff. We went through the list of people with a Utah connection that we could maybe do, but reached out to David's manager. I said, you pick a day. When it lines up with his schedule, it'll take 15 minutes. He just needs to say one line. And they said yes. And I'm so glad we did it when we did, because now he's launched this new song and he's, rising to popularity all over again. And I don't know if I could have got him today. He was on American Idol last week. I don't know if I could have got him. So that was great timing.
No, absolutely. No, and those videos were fun. And you mentioned the performance. So, for those that maybe for whatever reason have been living under a rock and haven't discovered you yet on social, you do a big live improv show here in Utah. Mm-hmm. It's at the Sierra Outdoor Theater. Seats around 3,000 people between the seats and the blanket seating. Mm-hmm. And in each case, we've been able to put together a Gen Quad medley and perform that. That was like, I don't know how else to put it. Like, that was a rush in and of itself. Like, it's
those
one
were
thing.
So cool. It's still our favorite openers that we've done, because we always try and open our shows with something kind of scripted, even though it's an improv show, have something planned to open with. And that's been our favorite. And I think that for the audience too, they've just loved it.
Well, and outside of the exquisite musical taste under what we thought was the musical direction of GENTRI's producer, Steven Nelson, but was actually more led by the dictatorship of our new owner, Shaun Johnson. I mean, tell the listeners what some of the what songs were in the medley.
Let's see. We've had a couple Britney Spears, not just one. She might be the only one we've done two of. Mariah Carey, Blink-182, Usher, Lit. So we've had, it's a wide variety. That's what Gen Quad's all about. We break genre boundaries. That's
we were broadening our horizons. We were stretching our capabilities a little bit. And man, that was an experience. The only thing that topped that, especially the first year, were the jackets that you found.
Yes, those were wild. We'll have to share some clips here to remind people.
Some clips and some photos. We'll definitely repost it. So you mentioned briefly your wife. I've gotten to know Nicole just over the last few years. I mean, she is in many ways a backbone to what you do. Obviously, she supports you, but in the context of your comedy career and putting on these shows, what does her involvement look like behind the scenes?
She's often the person kind of on the lookout for a concept. And she's not a comedian. She doesn't want to be. She doesn't want to be on stage doing the shows. And she really doesn't want to be in the sketches either. She just will tell me the idea. Hey, I've noticed this is kind of a thing, or people are doing this or talking about this. Maybe you can do something with that. And then I'll kind of run with that and turn it into something. And sometimes she likes what I turned it into, and other times she's like, no, you missed it. That's not going to work. But no, she's so many of the videos we've had, she's been the beginnings of, just the seed of the idea to get me going down that track.
How often when you have an idea, is she kind of your sounding board, and what is her, how much influence does her filter one way or another have on whether or not that idea sees the light of day?
She definitely has some influence, but I've had to push through a few times. Like, no, like a lot of people know my fall character. It's this giggling, insane representation of the season of fall. And when I did that, she was just, she stopped the camera and was like, what the heck is this? Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, just go with it. I got something here. Just don't mess it. Just hit record. I'm finding this truly artsy character. And so there have been a few times I've had to push through her, doubting. But for the most part, she's a great judge of whether my audience is going to appreciate it or not. If I get Nicole to laugh at it before we posted it, then I'm like, okay.
You're onto something here.
So if she's laughing, she's my harshest critic at this point, as all wives are. And so that's always a good sign.
When I feel like the only fictitious character that you've created more popular than Fall is the iconic Sandy.
Yeah.
Which we reference in the first Gen Quad video. I think it's BQ. When Casey's like, and who are you? And BQ's like, it's the blonde wig
He's
guy.
the guy. Yeah, he's the guy that wears the blonde wig. Yeah.
So I have to. So speaking of Nicole, who also happens to be blonde, was there any like funny looks from her when Sandy came onto the scene? Like, wait a minute, are you trying to tell me something through this character?
No, she thought it was great because we had done another character just with a wig we had, this ratty old dark wig. I did a carpool video, mom's in the carpool line at school. And so we had this wig and people really liked it. So I was really just ordering a nicer wig. I don't think there was any thought of, hey, this is you. And she would say, Sandy is not her.
Yeah.
There's crossover. But Sandy's not a representation of my wife. There's plenty of differences, but she gives me the ammunition for Sandy. Sandy got her name in an improv show. I don't know if you know that.
Oh no, tell us that story.
I was doing the character live where the audience asks questions and I respond as the character. And my friend Trent was hosting the show and he relayed the question to me and said, and sorry, I don't know what to call you. Did you tell me your name? And I was on stage like, I've never referenced a name for this character. And so normally in an improv show, I just make up a name. But I had a moment of, well, hold on a second. This is a recurring character on my Instagram. What is her name? And I just said Sandy. And so that's been the character name ever since. It was in the
it's
the
brilliant.
show.
And every time she makes an appearance at a show and a video, the crowd just goes crazy. Like she's become very beloved.
She gets louder cheers than I do.
and she's made it into merch on occasion.
Yes, which I haven't. So it's just I often compete a little bit with her, and I know it's weird because I am her, but it's a weird thing.
I love it. So you referenced Nicole, and like I said, I've really enjoyed getting to know her just behind the scenes as we've gone on a couple double dates, as we've hung out in different things. She is so awesome. And you guys recently became a family of 3.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about Shaun the dad.
It's been great. We tried for many, many years. And in some ways, the infertility journey allowed us the time to create Johnson Files and do what we've been doing. But on a personal side, we were just very frustrated. We couldn't seem to start our family, but we finally did. And it's amazing. He's great. I love it. I love the role. Always thought I would. Love my nieces and nephews and always have, but now it's just taken to an all new level. So it's been great.
Has becoming a dad given you kind of opened your mind to more ideas and perspectives for new material?
Yes, but also it's funny. The closer I am to something personally, sometimes I feel like it's the hardest to make jokes just broadly about it. Like, I don't know. It's like I can observe what my brother's going through with his own kids and make a video about it. Like one of our viral videos is the bedtime excuses where the kid doesn't want to go to bed. I made that when I had no kids. And you would think I had kids, but I could watch as an outsider and make fun of it. I feel like sometimes when you're in it, you can't step out of it and find the humor. So it's been interesting.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because one of the first videos I remember coming across of yours was, or maybe it was just one that popped up after I'd been following you for a while, but it was the Hey Mom, Watch This.
Yeah.
And I've got a 2.5, almost 3-year-old, and we're entering that phase where there will be periods, 15, 20 minutes of a time where it's like, watch this, and it's the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, again, another video that parents told me, spot on, this is so relatable. And I had no kids at the time. I'm just watching parents I know going through this, and they're like, oh my gosh, he's showing me another thing. And I'm like, that's hilarious. Like that he thinks you want to see that is hilarious. That idea. And that idea, I want to take a little bit of credit for that idea because now I see a lot of mom watch little things, on mommy blogs and or social media accounts. But when I did that idea, I sent it to my brother truly thinking, I have no idea if this is funny or if it's a thing to the extent that I'm portraying it. And he texted back and said, I'm crying right now. That is, you have to post it. And that was one of our most viral videos ever. And I feel like it kind of like, again, it goes back to you have a hard time seeing the humor in what you are trudging through, you know? And so I think there were plenty of parents that once I pointed it out, they were like, oh, duh, that's hilarious. And I see it every day. How did I not see that? Because it was too close to your face. Like I'm watching it and so I can see the joke, you know? And so I think there's something to that. When you're in it, it's hard to see it.
Well, I think that's part of a comedian's job is to help us that are so blinded by the day-to-day to step back and kind of laugh at ourselves a little bit.
Totally.
To find the humor in the everyday life that hopefully makes enduring it a little easier.
Yeah.
And we can appreciate it for what it is. And frankly, how insignificant in the grand scheme of things these problems in many cases often are.
Yeah, for sure. And I hope that that's the, you know, I want to make people laugh just in the moment when they're scrolling. But in the long term, I would love it if I change someone's full perspective on something. I've had parents tell me with the mom watch thing, I love that you made this video because I used to get so annoyed and kind of roll my eyes. And now every time they do it, I instantly start laughing. And that's great. We just flipped the script on this thing that was kind of bugging you. And now it's like a funny joke and you kind of laugh every time. That's great.
Yeah, comedy is its own kind of therapy in a way, which I love. It's good to laugh. Which is a perfect segue into our next segment I'm simply calling Joke or No Joke.
Joke or No Joke.
So in this segment, I'm going to be presenting a series of statements that might be considered by some to be open to interpretation, up for debate, or dare I say, even controversial. Your job is to declare joke or no joke and then defend your position. So, for example, we'll go ahead and start with one that may or may not have been submitted by a follower of the show, Nicole. Joke or no joke, there is a correct way to eat ice cream.
Okay, I see where this is. So it's if I agree.
Yeah,
or
basically
not.
True or false, agree, disagree.
Joke or no joke? No joke. There is a correct way to eat ice cream, and it is with the spoon upside down and the ice cream pressed against your tongue, which, by the way, I'm not a scientist, but that's where your taste buds are, and that's where you taste it, not on the roof of your mouth.
She literally told me this was going to become a scientific discussion.
Yeah, that's the extent of the science. She hates when I do it. When I put the spoon, and as it goes in my mouth, I flip it. And I've had many followers support me on this, so I know they're out there. And she's like, "Ugh, why do you do that? That is so weird." But I don't want to push it up against the roof of my mouth. I don't taste it up there. So I'm putting it on the sensory pad, if you will.
And the roof of the mouth, that's what brain freezes are made of.
Oh, yeah.
Who wants that?
There's no reason to shove ice cream up against the roof of your mouth.
And in Hollywood, anytime Brad Pitt's been seen eating, which is in 90% of scenes that he's in, and he's eating ice cream, when does he ever put it on the roof of his mouth?
I would actually have to go back and watch that, but I believe that he would flip it. Right?
I'm sure he did somewhere.
We put this out to Instagram, and I had a lot of support, so I feel confident in my position on that one. No joke.
I like it. We're gonna send that out to the what do you call it? To the community.
Yeah.
And let them
take
decide.
a poll.
There you go. All right, joke or no joke? The way you put a roll of toilet paper on the holder matters.
I mean, I guess I'll say joke because it matters, but how much does it matter? I mean, we can all deal.
And we often do.
We often
suffer in silence.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just thinking, like, is this really worth fighting for? It's never going to change. You're going to go in the Maverick, and it's going to be the wrong way, and so that's just what it is. Like, but we're all going to survive. I mean, there is a right way, but
which is
with the top, right?
It's over
the top.
Thank
over
you.
The
it's
top,
over
for sure,
100%.
definitely. But it's just not worth it.
I love it. And okay, this actually our conversation leading into this was perfect. Your fictitious comedic character, Sandy, could beat your character Fall in a boxing match? Joke or
In
no
a
joke?
boxing match. Oh man. Fall could beat Sandy, or Sandy could beat Fall. I think joke. I think Fall's just kind of wild. I don't think Sandy would even know what to do. I don't know if you've seen the video of Sandy in front of a dog. She doesn't even know like how to pet it. It's just Fall would just trample her.
Of all the things that I prepared, this was the one that I thought probably longest and hardest about, because I actually don't know. Because on one hand, Fall is so elusive and shifty.
Yeah, she doesn't want to commit to it, but yeah.
But Sandy, I just have a feeling some switch flips and it's game over.
Maybe if it's life or death. I've never put her in that situation. I don't know.
We'll stay tuned for the
Maybe I'll have to put her in that new level of stress.
Yeah, fight or flight. What's happening?
Maybe she might.
Okay, joke or no joke. Conan O'Brien is the best late night talk show host.
No joke. No joke about that for sure.
Heard you're a fan.
Oh yeah, I love
fan.
Conan. I think Conan is great. I mean, there's a lot of great. I'm not saying there are no other great talk show hosts or late night talk show hosts. I think there's a lot of great ones. But Conan is just, he comes from an improv background, so I'm a little biased there as well. But he's so good off the cuff, and that's what makes him such a great interviewer. He doesn't have to know what's going to happen or what questions he's going to ask. He's the only one you can just take to a place and say, "Okay, this is where we are, Conan. We're going to start filming. Go and talk to people." And it's hilarious every time. I mean, because he's just good. He's just good.
You know how sometimes people ask that question, if you could have dinner with anybody living or who's already passed on, who would be in your top three? Would he be in your top three?
Probably. I did get to meet him.
Oh, really?
And I have a video of it. It's in one of the highlight bubbles on our Instagram called Conan. And I was just sitting at the table with all the people. We were all just listening to him, and he heard that we were there honoring one of our friends that had passed away, so he came in to say hi. And everybody knew I was a huge fan. So he was about to leave, and then one of our friends goes, "Can you hold on to Can you just meet him? He just was a really big fan." And I stood up, and Conan goes, "Hey, how are you?" And I said, "Yes." As I reached out my hand to shake his hand. The video is so funny. It's literally captured on video. "Hey, how are you?" "Yes."
Is that like the equivalent of you're at the checkout line or you're scanning your ticket to get on an airplane and they're like, "Have a great flight." And you're like, "You too." Wait.
Honestly, no, because it was more just me having a million thoughts and knowing I have about 10 seconds to choose what to say. And so I just reached out and said yes. I was just, to your point, I wanted to sit down and have dinner with him, but I knew I had a very short window here to interact with him. He was super nice. He just made a joke of it and then said, "Do you want to get a photo?" And we got a photo, and he was just super nice.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. Okay, a couple more here. Joke or no joke? Michael Jordan is a bigger legend than Michael Jackson.
Jeez. I mean, I try and be unbiased because I'm not really an avid sports fan. I mean, I did watch during the Jazz versus Bulls years in like 1997. And Michael Jordan's great, but he didn't. I mean, some people would say he redefined the game. I would say he was just the best at the game that you can be. The game was already kind of made. But Michael Jackson created things that just didn't exist and then inspired so many to do the same. And so I think I would say Michael Jackson for that reason.
So a couple reasons I threw that scenario in there. Number one, you do a brilliant Michael Jackson impersonation.
Thank you. Yeah. That's
so
fun.
we
part of my show.
Yeah, we got to attend your stand-up show, and of all the impersonations you did, I felt like that one was the most spot on. Like if I had closed my eyes and you had just played the excerpt from that impersonation, I don't know that I would have been able to distinguish it. Like it was
well, that's
that
super
good.
Nice. I mean, my brothers and I grew up just obsessed with Michael Jackson. We wanted to dance like him, his songs. I mean, we destroyed my dad's CDs like kids do, just playing them and not taking care of them. They were scratched up to the max. But yeah, I loved Michael Jackson's music all growing up and still do. So
Have you seen MJ the Broadway musical?
no, but I've heard I have to.
You have to. If you're an MJ fan, you have to. So I admittedly was not the biggest MJ fan. Obviously familiar with many of his songs, but my wife is a huge Michael Jackson fan, loves his music. And when we got married, and this, it was just a few years ago actually that this Broadway musical came out, we decided to go see it. And ironically, we had heard mixed reviews from critics about the show, but we had a friend who was in the cast, and we went and saw it. And long story short, just blown away.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. We couldn't go last opportunity we had, but we definitely have to find a time to go.
Yeah,
I went to the, it's like a Cirque du Soleil show.
One in Vegas?
Yeah, Mandalay Bay.
I think we saw that. Was it one?
Yes.
Yeah, it was okay.
It was good. The sound system would knock your brains out.
It was piercing.
It was amazing, and it went all around the room.
Yeah.
So that was cool. You could tell the people weren't like dancers like that would have been in a Michael Jackson video. So I was a little bit like, that's kind of how Beat It goes, not quite. But it definitely, hit the spot, and it was fun. But I've heard the Broadway. Got to see the Broadway.
Yeah, definitely go see it when you can. Okay, one more here. Joke or no joke? The Office is a more iconic sitcom than Seinfeld.
I knew you were going to say Seinfeld. Oh my gosh. We got to have a separate episode for this.
There's a lot to unpack here in this question.
You said your statement was The Office.
The Office, yes,
what?
is a more iconic sitcom than
sitcom.
Seinfeld.
Joke. And I love The Office because I quote it to you all the time.
You're one of the few people in my life that does.
I know it backwards and forwards, so I love The Office. But, Seinfeld, again, I got to figure out a way to answer this question so that we don't take up the whole time. But it's just in a different league. And in some ways, it's the same as the Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan comparison. It changed the whole playbook of sitcoms. I mean, I think the number one show before Seinfeld was Alf. And you've got other shows like Full House, Home Improvement, these happy family shows. And here was this show with these really flawed people that really were actually quite selfish and not likable in a lot of ways. And that was not the formula. And then they took these little situations that we all encounter and little mini decisions we have to make, like what's the right thing you do in this situation? And we didn't think anybody else even thought that way. And they put it out for the whole world. It's truly a show that you can just see is written by two stand-up comedians with great timing and great ideas, Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld. And it's just in a whole new, it made a whole new genre. I feel like it redefined the whole genre. The Office is so funny, but it's like a pinball machine. It's Steve Carell is the ball, and then here's all these other characters for him to bounce off of. And it's so funny. Steve Carell is great, but it's just not the ensemble that Seinfeld was. The characters in Seinfeld all carry their own thing, and then they branch together perfectly at the end of the episode. They give you that moment. The Office is just, let's see what crazy shenanigans Michael Scott can get up to. And final point, it is a remake.
True.
So there's that. And it's a great remake, and it's the American take, but you got to at least subtract a few points for the fact that it is a remake of another show that
And
already
Seinfeld
existed.
is just
and
an
Seinfeld
original.
is what it was. So that's my shortest version I can do. We could do a whole podcast on that if you wanted to.
I
Breaking
look
that
forward to
down.
that episode.
I love Jerry Seinfeld. He was really the person I looked up to most growing up, as far as like, man, I wish I could do that. That would be so amazing. Like
Yeah.
he blew me away.
Yeah, and the fact that's where I was going to go with it, because you shared, I don't remember if you shared it, I don't think you shared it from stage, but you shared it with me backstage, or at least in preparation for this stand-up show. I mean, he was a stand-up comic himself, and in fact, the first time I had ever listened to a CD of a stand-up routine was actually Jerry Seinfeld, and the one that stands out more than anything is his iconic delivery of the whole airports thing.
Yeah.
Right? And I just remember laughing so hard. And then so then when Jim Gaffigan came around, like, it's like you said, he was like a pioneer in a way that kind of set the stage for these other great comedians to come through. I was just eating it up. But what role specifically has Jerry Seinfeld played in inspiring you, in, I don't know, making you want to do comedy?
I mean, he's just so good at what he does. He's so smart. He doesn't have to do any shock value whatsoever like a lot of comedians have to do. You know, that's a style if you want to do stand-up where you're just going to say the most shocking thing to kind of catch people off guard and be kind of politically incorrect. He just doesn't need any of that because he's so good at just taking the little details of life and creating a story and a joke out of it. And it's just what he does. And I also love, you know, he's kind of crabby and he just kind of just hates everything. And I just think that's what makes him so funny, is that everybody's just kind of going along with stuff and he's just going, what is this? What are we doing? And that's what makes him so great, is him and Larry David both. They're just the guys to go, we can't have this, you know? And so I just have always looked up to him. He released an HBO special when I was in high school called I'm Telling You for the Last Time. I think a lot of people listening probably are familiar with that one. And it was him retiring all his best material. Like, last time I'm performing these jokes. And it was just like an hour and a half straight of tears laughing. My face hurt. And I didn't even get all the jokes at that age, but I was just like so enamored. And so, yeah, I love Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah, he's a legend for sure.
My buddy even gifted me, because he heard I was going to do stand-up. And he was like, dude, if you're going to do stand-up, you got to have the white Nike sneakers.
I was going to ask
like
you,
Jerry
are those
Seinfeld.
the sneakers?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. He probably wears a slight variation of them
Yeah.
or something, but he often wore, even if he's wearing a suit, he'd have the white Nike sneakers, and so he's like, "You got to have these." And I was like, "I didn't even think of that. That's great." So I've been wearing it for all my shows.
I think you had mentioned that. So prior to me going to your stand-up show, which I know was a big deal, and we'll get into in just a second, but seeing you walk out in the sneakers, I was like, all right, a little bit of Jerry with Shaun tonight.
Yeah,
I like it
for sure.
So going back to the beginning, I mean, like I said, the majority of folks probably know you from social media, right? Many have been to shows, but I don't know that I've ever heard you answer the question, why the Johnson Files? Where did that come from?
Well, my wife started posting on her personal Instagram, and this is when videos could only be 15 seconds and there were no stories. It was just 15-second videos on the feed. And she would post these random videos of me doing things that she thought were kind of funny. And then people started saying, hey, you know, I'd really love to share this with my friend, but your account is private. And so how do I do that? And, you know, we were very new to social media, so we were like, I guess we could create an account. And so we were actually at Disney World on the little train that takes you from the parking lot to the park. Like, what could we call it? And that's where we thought of the name. We threw around, the idea was it will be just little, you know, mini episodes of us doing something fun. And we didn't really know what that would always be. So we talked about like the Johnson Chronicles or something like that. Seinfeld was originally called the Seinfeld Chronicles. I don't know if you know that.
I didn't know
and
that.
then they changed it to Seinfeld. But then we just thought, you know, like X-Files, the Johnson Files. And now it feels normal. And like when I say it, but at the time we're like, I don't know. But yeah, that became our name.
So I know, well, you alluded to this. So as you were posting these videos on Nicole's account, you said it was?
Yeah, her
but
personal
they were
Instagram.
private and, you know, limited in visibility. You made the realization that, okay, like we've got something here. People are obviously finding it funny and entertaining. But as you went to market, we'll say, more broadly with the Johnson Files, at what point did you both take a step back and be like, no, we're like really onto something? Was there a specific moment, a specific video or sketch that you put out?
Yeah, but way later. I mean, it really was just a goofy thing to do for fun. Again, you know, we didn't have kids, and it was just social media was kind of evolving all the time. It was like every few months they added a new feature to Instagram, and video was new on Instagram. And like I said, 15 seconds, like what can you even do in 15 seconds? So they were really simple. I mean, you can still scroll back to the beginning and see these 15-second videos way back there. And it was just for fun. And then once it opened up to a minute that you could do, then it was like, okay, you can do something with a minute. Like a minute's a good amount of time. So we started doing more with it. We started doing these lip sync videos where I would throw the camera up while we were driving somewhere and I would lip sync very animatedly and Nicole would just react to it. And two videos, I guess, are what really were the shifts. The first one was our neighborhood flooded during Hurricane Irma, and we were stranded at our apartment. You couldn't drive cars in or out. The whole parking lot was flooded. And this was when we lived in South Florida. And so I went out shirtless with a little inner tube and I made a Moana parody. Moana was really big at the time, and that got super viral. I did not expect that. And then I did a lip sync to The Greatest Showman, This Is Me, and The Greatest Showman Instagram account shared it, and the bearded lady actress herself shared it. So then I was like, okay, man, you can really get some momentum with some of these stupid ideas. I really was surprised, but it was still just for fun. And then one day I said, you know what? If we keep growing and making viral videos, this could be a business. And Nicole was like, okay, calm down. A business? Like of what? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, who knows? And again, not faulting her. It was a very much evolving thing. Like, what would that even look like? Like, there were no affiliate codes at the time. There were no like way to monetize your social media. But that was the first kind of nugget of like, I don't know how, but maybe there's something there.
So speaking of social media and these videos, I think the first video of yours that I can remember seeing, that I remember personally being like, okay, this guy's good. He's hilarious. He's clever. His delivery and timing is spot on, was the video you did around the housing chaos.
Yeah.
Of, what was it, 2020?
Yeah. Right after or during, I guess, COVID. Yeah. The huge explosion of prices in Utah and the bidding wars and all that. Yeah.
And this was put out even after you guys had started doing shows, right? You'd already been doing shows at that point.
Yeah.
How long have you guys been doing improv shows at that by the time that video came out?
2018 was our first Johnson Files show.
Okay, so take me from Nicole rolling her eyes a little bit, being like, yeah, right, a business, to you just sold out your first show. And I mean, what was that realization like?
Well, I came out here to visit family and just wanted to jump in comedy sports in Provo, where I used to do improv and do a show with some friends. And a buddy of mine, I just posted on Instagram that I was there doing a show. And a buddy of mine said, hey, I'm really glad you posted about this because it's kind of a slow time of year. And we were only about half sold. But then when you posted it, we sold out. And I was like, wait, really? Okay, hold on a second. So it didn't take long. My brain was instantly like, so half the people here came because of my Instagram? Okay, hold on a second. That's not very fair. I got to do something about that. And so I messaged, or actually called my buddy, and I was like, hey, what if I just rented a space and we did our own improv show, and we can bring people from Instagram. Still didn't know if it would work. We lived in Florida, so felt didn't have an exact pulse on how many people in Utah were going to respond. But we have been so fortunate with a dedicated, supportive audience that loves what we do on Instagram and in the live shows. They bring the whole family. I mean, that's been a game changer for us. That's really been what keeps me motivated to keep making content, is that when it counts, people actually show up. Because it's one thing to scroll and to, tap like or even leave a comment, but to buy a ticket and show up, we just have great followers that are like, no, we love what you're doing and we're going to actually be at your shows. And so I just am so grateful for that still.
Yeah. That's one thing I was going to comment on, is anybody in the content creation world or in the world of live entertainment knows that they are not one and the same. You can have a huge following and still struggle to sell tickets. And by extension, like, you can be relatively inexistent online, but pack a house. And so being able to find that mix between the two, I've always been really, really impressed by. And frankly, speaking specifically to your improv comedy shows, having been to, a small handful over the years, shout out not only to you and all of the work that goes on to put the show on, to put the tours together, but also to the supporting cast that's come in. It's always been a little bit different. Obviously, we've seen some familiar faces, but to me, the art and skill of improv comedy is just something that I mentally cannot wrap my mind around. And it's funny. In fact, I remember when we were doing that first Gen Quad opening act performance, and it was so interesting to observe the vibe of everybody backstage, because in my world, where everything is rehearsed and scripted and we know exactly where we're going before we even step on stage, there is a level of focus and almost like individual isolation to make sure that you're zoned in. And everybody backstage at your show was just like having a good time. And I remember pulling you aside being like, Shaun, like, why aren't you guys more stressed out? Like,
it starts in 3 minutes.
Like, it starts in 3 minutes. You don't even know what you're going to say. And you're just like, yeah, exactly.
What are we gonna talk about? What are we even going to review? There's nothing to review. Yeah. It's fun that way.
And so when you made the jump then from improv comedy to stand-up comedy, which right now, for those listening, you're right in the middle of mounting your first stand-up comedy tour, which has taken you to a number of states. I mean, how many locations and markets have you guys visited?
I think we got 10 shows across 5 or 6 states. And so, I wanted to go as big as I can go. I'm not world famous by any means, but like I said, we have dedicated fan base in certain areas. They're not always super concentrated. I wish I could just go where everybody is, but when we go to an area where we have people, they're just so great, and they show up for what I've literally had messages just saying, keep doing whatever you want to do, and we're here for it. And that is so like, I mean, imagine what better message can you get from a fan as a creator, because you want to create what feels right and what feels motivating and challenging to you. And for people, multiple people, just to say, yeah, whatever you want to do, we're here for it. That is like the best. And that's what I've been blessed with basically now with these live shows for 6 years is people like that just show up. And so this is totally new for me, the stand-up thing. Again, very familiar with it from a young age. It's always intimidated me in many aspects, but it's been super rewarding and fun and challenging, and I'm so glad I did it, and am doing it.
Well, like I said, having now officially opened on multiple occasions for a big improv show, I see what goes into the preparation for an improv show, which aside from the logistics and the pre-show dinner, not much.
Not much for the individual show. Now, I don't want to discount, and you brought up my friends, and I do want to say that's been a huge blessing too. I have hilarious friends, and improv is a team sport.
Yeah.
It's not like stand-up. And so they have helped make this possible by showing up, and I paid them, obviously. So, it's a two-way street. Guys, don't get too excited. But no, they're hilarious. I have hilarious friends that have elevated the brand and elevated the shows. And but I can't remember what you asked me that made me want to say that. But
well, so actually, you just
the preparation.
Yeah,
that's what I wanted to say. The preparation for an improv show is, 15 years and 1,000 shows to be able to not be stressed before you go out on stage, and that's what those guys have. And why we're able to just chill backstage, right? The preparation for a stand-up show is totally different. And you are focused, like you were talking about, walking around going, okay, what's after that and what's after this? So yeah, totally different vibe backstage for these shows.
It's interesting to hear you refer to improv comedy as a team sport. But my mind is actually drawn back to my very limited exposure to improv comedy drills in acting classes or productions that I'd done, where
just exercises
exercises, where essentially it's a lot of give and take, call and respond, and there has to be context and continuity. And I mean, if I do or say something to you, you have to respond or send it back in a way that makes sense, right? It can't just be off in left field. But also by extension, something that I learned is there has to be a level of trust, because by making a choice in acting, whether it's improv or not, it's vulnerable. You're putting yourself out there. And if that's not accepted or reciprocated and played along with or built upon, like, it's kind of a demoralizing feeling in a way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You can be left hung out to dry if you're not with people who you trust. I mean, a common thing you'll see in multiple improv troupes across the globe is before they go out for a show, they hear them getting announced out on stage, and they're backstage and they're patting each other on the back, every person to every other person, saying, I got your back, I got your back, I got your back. And that's just something we do in the improv world, because what you're saying is, you don't know what's going to happen, I don't know what's going to happen, but I got your back, you got my back. There really is no failing. And so that's what's so fun and exciting about improv is to have an idea and to go out there and just say, Dad, I'm scared, when no one's on stage, and just know somebody's going to be my dad. I'm not going to be standing out there going, Dad, I'm scared, and no one comes out. Someone's going to jump out within a second and go, well, son, we've talked about this. You don't need to be scared. There's nothing under the bed. And then you go, thank you. Okay, it's under the bed. Okay. Well, I just always feel like I see these little hands. I told you, those are your slippers, son. And then it's just back and forth, right? And it becomes something you didn't even plan because you had each other's back. And so I'll always love the improv, because it's so applicable to life and business and just everything.
As you set that stage for that scene, I was cueing Chad Truman on the keys with
Yeah,
the
we
90s
gotta have a song.
synth music underneath. No, it's so true. Whether it's improv, I think that live entertainment in general, again, whether it's scripted or rehearsed or not, there's one thing that I think everyone who's in the business of live entertainment in one way or another can agree on. It's that if it can go wrong, it probably will eventually.
Yeah.
Or it definitely could, or something certainly will. And so, yeah, we see the same thing on stage as Gentry, is that even though we know the set list, we know more or less what we want to say, we know the moments we're trying to create, at some point, like, you're going to draw a blank. At some point, you're going to trip over your words or forget a lyric, or something's going to happen. And there is a lot of comfort in knowing that the people around you are there to pick you up. And in some cases, even the audience, right? Like, I mean, when I go to an improv show of yours, I just am like rooting for you guys so badly. Number one, because I understand to a small extent what you're going through having been on stage. But number two, like, I want nothing more than to laugh.
For sure.
That's why I'm there.
You don't want us to crash and burn.
Yeah, well, it's unbelievable. And like you said, shout out to all of your supporting cast, the many that have been there over the years. Like, they're awesome. And you guys do have an amazing dynamic and synergy together. So this has been awesome, Shaun. And as we wrap up, like I said, you're in the middle of your improv tour. By the time this airs, it'll probably be long gone. But let me ask you this, like, having done a few shows under your belt, do you enjoy, stand-up? I think I said improv. I mean, do you enjoy stand-up? Is this something you want to continue to do in addition to the improv side?
I have really enjoyed it. It's been really hard, especially coming from a background where, you book the venue, you get your friends there, and then we have fun and we'll make a show, right? It's just so much more prep. But, I was thinking about your podcast and just kind of the Dreamer's Den idea, and I think I held myself back from doing something like this because it just felt out of my wheelhouse and hard, but it's been so invigorating and so new. And even our assistant, who's at all the improv shows, was so weirded out because before the first stand-up show, she went over to Nicole and was like, is everything okay? I've never seen Shaun like this. Like, what's going on? Because normally I'm just talking to my buddies, and now I'm like pacing around and I'm like reviewing things. She's like, is everything okay? This seems wrong. But you gotta push yourself out of your comfort zone. Like, I'm so comfortable with improv. And that's what this has brought for me. The concept of telling a joke and timing or telling a funny story is still the same. It's a different art form, and it's pushed me in ways that I haven't been pushed. And it took just booking the venues and saying, I'm going to do this. And now there's a deadline and I'm holding myself to it. And I really enjoy it. Can I do it all again and make another hour show? I'd love to. I don't know. It's hard, but I'm super happy with where I'm at with it. And I think the lesson I've taken from it is no matter how long you've been doing something, you can find a way to apply that to a new challenge and take it to the next level. And you know what? It could have totally not worked. And maybe people would have been like, go back to improv. But you got to give it a shot, like, and just see if you feel like it's the shot to take, don't doubt that.
I remember seeing a story on your Instagram, and I think it might have been your assistant took that video of Nicole right as you took the stage for the first time. I think it was a night we were at the show, and just seeing the excitement, the pride. I mean, you could tell, like, exactly like you just described. Like, she watched you prepare and build and worry and stress about something that wasn't necessarily maybe comfortable for you. Because like you said, like, you're putting yourself out there, you're putting your name on it, you're putting your face on it. That definitely resonates with me, with the entire dream team here at the podcast. We like to say that this podcast was born out of a dream, this idea, this vision that we didn't know if it was going to work. And frankly, we're still figuring it out if it's going to work.
I love it. I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, it's cheesy, right? Like, everybody's like, just dream big and go for it. And like, any motivational seminar you hear is going to say that. But I don't know. I'm a realist. I'm actually probably shoot myself down very often because I go, that doesn't make sense. There's really no reason to take that kind of a risk. I'm not necessarily a risk taker. I think that's what everybody sees entrepreneurs as. It's like, oh, you gotta be a risk taker if you're an entrepreneur. But I think all types are out there. I don't think just throwing caution to the wind and never assessing risk is necessarily like, oh, well, good for you. There's justified risks that you need to maybe consider. And I am always weighing the risks. But I think if you feel something, like, you got to trust your gut. And there's another cliche that I think is just true, right? Like, if you just keep having a gnawing feeling like, I got to do that, I know I can do it, then just set a date or make the next step in the plan. Because if it keeps gnawing at you, there's probably a reason. And it doesn't mean it's going to be, some multi-million-dollar idea, but it's probably a great challenge for you to put yourself to.
So the last thing we like to do on this show, we call the Dreamer's Digest. And if you could go back to that moment that you talked about earlier in the show where you started to see that traction, you saw an opportunity, you felt that inkling of like, well, maybe we should do something, but you were trying to fight this balance of, well, can I actually do something? Can I actually turn this into a business? Can I actually sell a ticket? Can I actually grow a following? Knowing what you know now, having learned what you now know with the context that you have, what would you say to yourself and Nicole back then that maybe would have changed how you approached it, would have caused you to worry less?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, immediately I'm thinking you can't mess with the space-time continuum. If I say something to my past self, it's going to throw off the whole butterfly effect, and I won't end up doing anything I've done. Am I overthinking it? No, I think just not underestimating the potential, and ultimately, thankfully, we had the kind of followers and encouragement from people whenever we took a step. There were so many hands there to say, yep, you're good, keep going. So those doubts didn't last that long. But I think that still, you're stepping into the unknown and you keep putting yourself out there in ways you don't know if they'll be validated, putting the first show on sale and scared to charge $10, like those type of things. I might say, just move forward and let what happens happen, because it's all going to be fine. I don't know that it would change anything though, because everything for me, everything has evolved and happened in the right way. I'm doing more comedy and doing more of my passions than I ever dreamed I would be doing if you'd asked me 20 years ago. I mean, my view was I'm doing improv because I'm in college and it's fun. And then as soon as I graduate and get married, I got to get serious, and then no more jokes. And so, I mean, I got nothing to go back and like, well, you should have done this. I mean, I'm more than happy that I have people that think what I do is funny and seem to resonate with my sense of humor and will support me in doing it. And I mean, I don't want to go back in time and mess it up. Okay. So if you gave me the DeLorean and said, do you want to go back and change? I'd be like, no, it'll just mess something up. I'm just going to stay right here.
Oh, there you go. So in a way, the joke's on your older self for thinking that way, that it wasn't possible. Because you've clearly proven that it is, and it has.
Yeah. So just let him do what he did. Because then if I don't, he'll screw something else up.
I love it. Once again, everybody, you've been listening to the Dreamer's Den podcast with Shaun Johnson of the Johnson Files. Shaun, if people want to watch this hilarious content, follow you guys, support you guys, make it out to the next show, where can they learn about this?
Yeah, Instagram's the main place. We're on all the social media platforms, of course, or johnsonfiles.com. And that's about it.
Okay, awesome. Well, if you get a chance to, definitely make it out to one of the improv shows. Shaun, like I said, I know that by the time this airs, the tour will be over, but good luck with the rest of the stand-up tour.
Thank you. And we're going to find a way. We've recorded it, so we'll find a place to put it, either YouTube or some streaming service. So we'll get it out there for people to see.
Well, for that being your first go around, I could have been fooled and thought you've been doing it for years, because it was really, really well done.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate
Absolutely. If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to give us a follow at Dreamer's Den Podcast on social media, as well as subscribe wherever you get your podcast. On behalf of the entire Dream Team, I'm Brad Robbins, reminding you all to work hard, be kind, and always dare to dream.